Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mohammed Abdullah. We're here at the ASD Mosque, Yakuba Avenue. And today we're going to be talking about the necessity for Islamic thinkers. It's very important for us at this day and age as Muslims to have thinkers that are up to date with what's happening around the world. The Western world is heavily influential to the Islamic curricula in schools, and that is not a bad thing because we can learn much from what the West has to offer in sciences and mathematics, in new research, and currently even artificial intelligence. The West has done a lot of work with regards to its philosophy. They're talking about evolution. They're talking about things that are very even gender fluidity, things that are very problematic to Muslims, things that Muslims need to figure out an Islamic way for Muslims. So my point of view at this moment is that Muslim thinkers need to really become more aggressive in terms of their learning so that they can encompass all the necessary knowledge they can utilize to assist the Muslims in living a decent life in a very, I think, globalized world. Ideas are no more local. We have ideas now that can take root in Austria and have the most impact in, say, Africa. So my advice, and I think a very important call for Muslim scholars, is to begin to gather more knowledge, not just say hadith or fiqh, but also the modern types of knowledge and the modern types of stretches that we have now in the world. So I'll give you an example. For instance, evolution is a very good example. Now Muslims and even Christians have a problem with it because we would not certainly agree that we were monkeys at some point. But we would believe, of course, that evolution is true to some extent. For instance, carrots were purple. Potatoes at some point were not edible plants. So of course these things changed, and even within 10, 15 years you can see some evolutions happening around you. But when it comes to, say, creationism, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, which we agree with, and is an Islamic theme, we would not accept the evolutionary explanation of our creation. But how do you then, give a rebuttal to those people that are claiming this, people that are very influential and very eloquent, like Richard Dawkins from Oxford University? It will be a very difficult thing because unfortunately a lot of scholars do not go into this study. They just say for instance, the Quran says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings from dust. And we believe this with conviction. It's a part of our tawheed to believe in this. But then if you're talking to a wider audience, you might be talking to atheists, you might be talking to agnostics, people that are still searching, you might be talking to a Muslim that is not practicing but inclined towards science. So you have to sound like you know what you're talking about, not just sound like that, but actually know what you're talking about, so that you can have a very comprehensive response to this kind of problematic ideologies that we have to counter as Muslims. The gender issue, if you say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created male and female, that's true. It's stated clearly in the Quran. But now that you have social scientists coming with views that their gender is a social construct. So for instance, if you wake up tomorrow in the United States and say that as a man, and you just proclaim to everybody that you're a woman, by law you have to be regarded as a woman. So biology doesn't make any sense now. It's just what you believe. So Muslims have to have a counteractive, meaningful counteractive discussions with people that have these claims. And unfortunately, seeping through the Muslims, especially the youth, through social media, ideas now travel so far and fast that we can't control it. I mean, we live in the world of accelerations. Everything is faster than it used to be. So my point is, scholars have to be very aware with the psychology, the sociology of their societies. Not just the verses, but you have to have the verses in context. You know, there's a verse in the Quran where Zakaria alayhi salam, I think it was Imran who wanted a child, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a child, and he said, if I have this child, I'll put him in service to the holy place, you could say a temple or the place of ibadah. And he had the good news of a child, but it was a female child. And now you don't give your female children to the place of worship at that time. So he had a problem, and one of the things he said in the Quran was وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that males are not like females, and it's a clear thing. So what's the context today? We have to understand the roles of our genders. You know, males have certain roles in society, females have certain roles in society. Especially if you're Muslim, you have to accept these roles as very important and not just be very adamant at trying to cause commotion in society when there is no need of it. So my view here is Muslim scholars need to understand the contextual value of the verses of the Quran today. How do you apply them? How do you help people navigate through life with a very, I think you could easily say, confusing landscape around them, especially the youth who are susceptible to a lot of bombardments from the social media, a lot of information. We're in the new information age where it's very easy to get news, and mostly it's not good news, because good news is never news. So the scholars have to be on par with this. We have a lot of mental health problem as well, where people are, some of them are genetic and some of them are self-imposed, like people that take drugs. So scholars need to, one of the phenomena you find is the moment somebody starts to become addicted to drugs, they're sent to the imam, or the imam is called for nasiha or to get some advice from them. And the imam, unfortunately, doesn't understand the mental capacity of the human brain, doesn't understand the psychological tendencies of the person that is having these kind of problems. And even the person that is addicted doesn't understand this. It's clearly shown in researches done that people that are addicted cannot explain what they feel, but they actually know they're going through something. So the scholars need to understand the psychology of the human being, because it's now very important. Psychology is, at this point, one of the most important social sciences that we have out there, psychiatry, so that when people have mental problems, we just don't do ruqya on them. It's very easy, for instance, if a woman doesn't have a husband, they take them to the imam or the pastor and they start doing some exorcism, which might not be the problem actually. It might not be a jinn or anything like that, but it might be a mental problem. So to understand how people develop from, one point of view to another, how people move from one perspective to another, based on their life experiences, what traumas did they experience in their lives, what kind of upbringing they had growing up. So these are important matters that I think is beyond what people talk about now, unfortunately. I think the discourse, the conversation we're having with regards to these matters of like mental health is, it's not, we don't have enough discourse out there, and even if we do, the discourse is not up to the standard that it needs to be, so that people begin to understand and really tackle the problem how it's supposed to be tackled, not just using sentiments and some outdated practices. But ruqya is very important when the problem is certain that that's the issue. So, of course, we have so many philosophies now, ideologies. Every day there's a new ideology out there. Today is feminism, tomorrow you never know. It was evolution. It still is evolution. Now the world, even Muslims now, are accepting evolution as a whole, unfortunately. And you have many other, problems with ideologies that I think the Muslim scholars need to help their followers tackle, because one ideology might be good and another might be terrible. I mean, even in economics, what is the Islamic response to the problems we're having now with riba, for instance? People talk about gender problems as if that's the only problem we need to talk about. But for me, a more damaging problem is the riba problem, right? Riba is real, and Muslims need to have their own banks, which we're not actually building. There is only one bank, as I know, possibly a second one coming through this year. But it should have been this problem should have been taken care of a long time ago, which it wasn't. And now we're having problems everywhere with this financing of, say, projects and facility managements and all that. And Muslims should have solved this problem a long time ago. And it's a philosophy. I mean, economics is a philosophical study of the economic viability of a place, for instance. So Muslims should have been doing that for a long time, to give solutions that are credible and that can help Muslims traverse the territory of financing in today's world, but it hasn't been done. So that is why I'm calling for a revision of Muslim thought to counteract this, I would say, calamities that we have, because they are calamities, and help Muslims navigate through life without incurring much sin, so that they don't go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with bad deeds. You can talk about this from different dynamics. I mean, the problem of ideology is multifaceted. As I said, some are good, some are bad. Like capitalism, what's the Islamic take on this? I mean, I hear, for instance, a lot of Muslims saying, if they want to call somebody a materialist, they mistake that term and say he's a capitalist. But the reality is, capitalism means using more capital, or the capital that you have acquired, to build a business, to make more profit and to generate wealth. And there's nothing bad about that. The Prophet ﷺ was a businessman. Ali ibn Abi Talib traded. Uthman ibn Affan was a very rich trader. Abdurrahman bin Auf was a rich trader. And it reduced nothing of their faith. They understood how you could use capital and generate wealth. Now, if you say capitalism is haram, then that's a problem. Now, what is the Islamic take on capitalism? If there is a negative tendency within this structure, then what is the problem? I mean, let's sit and talk about it from an intellectual perspective, so that we can take out, we can take an ideology, take what's good from it and drop it, because there's a very important saying. Some people think it's a hadith, but it's not a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ was supposed to have said, but it's not, as I said, it's not a prophetic saying, but it's a very wise saying, that al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min fa'anna wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha, that wisdom is the stray camel of a believer. Wheresoever he finds it, he's more worthy of it. So he should take it wherever he finds it. So Muslims, I mean, we used to be the epitome of wisdom. I mean, Islamic philosophy gave birth to what we have now as modern calculus. Muslims, I mean, the numbers are called Arabic numbers because the Arabs actually invented sifr, which the Latin now took on and called zero. And it changed the way people did maths. I mean, Muslims were the first people to calculate the circumference of the earth and got it very close to what it, I mean, I think that they got it with just 4 kilometers off. And Muslims were the first people to actually operate on the eye, to remove cataracts successfully in hospitals. Muslims did the first study of germs and understood the phenomenology of germs and bacteria and how it worked in contact with the human body. Muslims were the first people to actually write, they were the first philologists, people that studied language and wrote dictionaries. I mean, the first Jewish dictionary was written by Muslims. And many more things. I mean, and Muslims were very tolerable of ideas, because you see, for instance, when I was in school, I remembered we once studied the history of the Crusades, and I was very struck when I found out that Richard, the King of England, famously known as Richard the Lionheart, who came to the Muslim land for the Crusades.